Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I'll bring to you a genuine question. If you clicked on this video looking for guidance on World Eaters, I'm sorry, I am not the person for that. This is a question from me to all of you World Eaters players that might have seen this, or people that play teams, so on and so forth. I am here for knowledge today, compared to bringing you knowledge. But just looking at it, it might be insane. So, World Eaters have been apparently here in the, you know, beginnings of this new era of ours in 40K. And I think most people will agree that they're not doing terribly bad. They're still doing okay, right? I think they're still doing fine. But, you know, things could be better. They did get hit on the latest MFM. So there's that. But now I bring to you a conversation on where World Eaters could go and what they can do. Again, this isn't to say that it's a good idea. Probably not for people playing singles. But I have a question on if World Eaters could be the best stat check ah, ah, army for a teams format. A lot of people are, buzzing about with teams and that discussion coming up lately, and there's been a lot of team tournaments as of late and seems to be in the works for more frequently from across several channels. And this idea is first like, has anybody done this? Because it seems like people should probably do this, or maybe not probably, could do this when they have access to such things and World Eaters. This is definitely asking for a person with like a dedicated World Eaters collection. Like we're talking probably Jack Harpster, Anthony Vanilla levels of playing World Eaters for a while to have this collection. But also, if you're asking them to play World Eaters, you're probably asking them to get a 20-0 versus their opponent versus just, I don't know, 13-7 or something like that. But World Eaters, I also have this question because there is an interesting thing across the like Chaos Legions. Death Guard has seen some new love and people are enjoying their new toys. They've always brought well, they're now having the chance to be like, yeah, I can bring Mortarion and not feel bad about it. I can. They've brought Rodagus or a Great Unclean One several times throughout this edition, or War Dogs. So you have that where it's like, yeah, I guess it would make sense for Death Guard to ally and allies. Thousand Suns, they have the issue of if you aren't bringing a Thousand Suns piece, you're not getting Cabal points, so it kind of isn't worth it when you have Magnus and the Mutilative Vortex Beast right there. So, like, you don't really need anything additional there. Okay, makes sense. And then it seems to be that World Eaters are in the middle of that, where, yeah, if they're not straight from World Eaters, you're not getting Blessings of Corn on those models. But then you look at like what you get from Blessings of Corn, and it's not the most outrageous things, right? Like it makes sense to have these on your corn units, your World Eaters units, but I don't think you would be hard pressed to not have them on the things that you put in your army on this one. A bit of a Death Guard style, but then we come to the next thing. Death Guard, like you have the contagion aura, it's either like a debuff, pretty much like aura buff to you, I guess, in a way. So you have that where it's like, all right, if I spread that, I can have some units do that and some units not do that, and you won't miss anything. Corn, again, as somebody that plays Tyranids, you can kind of just ignore your army rule a lot of the time, right? If you have the data sheets to back it up. And I think that's what Blessings of Corn is, where it's like you're just boosting the data sheets. In my opinion, again, take all of what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I don't play World Eaters, and if my friend that does play World Eaters sees this, I don't know, bro. You can text me and tell me how stupid I am. So on to what I think could be one of the dopest stat checks in a teams format. Maybe in singles. I don't know. You have to tell me on that one. But why not do like the seven greater demon list or the Chaos Knights kind of version with World Eaters, because you have access to, well, a lot of stuff. We're talking Angron, who can come back on top of that, right? Like 11 T11, 2 up save, 4 up invuln, 16 wounds, 435 points of steep, but has fly and deep strike and is very scary, right? Like we know Angron is scary. Um, a lot of armies struggled to deal with Angron in a timely manner before Angron gets into your face and beats your ass. And then when you finally get rid of him, there's a chance that he comes back. Angron is a problem for kind of everybody. The price is a steep price, and I think I've heard World Eaters players talking about just leaving Angron at home, but then I've also heard wiser World Eater players say you cannot just leave Angron. So I don't know. That seems to be a split from, like, I guess that's the definition of top level and not top level levels of play. Whereas, like, if anybody's thinking about leaving Angron, from what I understand, they're insane. But I'm also hearing people say that's a lot of points. So I don't know. But starting off this stat check idea, you take Angron, okay, 435 points. Then you take the Corn Lord of Skulls, and the reason I even thought about this like rabbit hole is that I'm hearing World Eaters players are like, yeah, we finally have to. I think we have to cave. We have to bring some level of shooting to manage what's going on in the meta. It's kind of just not working out, not doing that. So people are bringing Forge Fiends. And I'm not going to knock that. I think Forge Fiends are a fine unit. But I do wonder why nobody seems to have used the Corn Lord of Skulls like most of this edition. I think we've seen it pop up a couple of times across CSM and World Eaters. And I can admit I wasn't impressed when I actually finally read the World Eater version of the ability. Each time you make a Blessings of Corn roll for each enemy unit destroyed by this model in the previous battle round, you can add one, two, or subtract one from one of the dice rolled. Each dice can only be modified in this way once, and a dice cannot be modified below one or above six. That sounds like it can help you get Angron back if he leaves. And for something that's T13, with a save of 3, invuln of 5, 24 wounds, with this type of profile, like with the Skull Hurler, 60 inches, 2d6, hitting on 3s, strength 14, AP 3, damage 3, that sounds insane. It's a big thing when Corn Allegiance, so of course the melee is going to be insane. Um, yeah, so it just seems like this kind of covers those bases, but I can understand if you don't want to put in 450 points compared to whatever two World Eater Forge Fiends are. I can really understand that one. Also, I was surprised that anything in the World Eaters index is more expensive than Angron. That just seems kind of fucking weird. Like, that's your Supreme Commander. And then you have Vehicle, Titanic Vehicle. So I don't know. I just thought that was strange, but I can also understand it. If you told me that they made the Corn Load of Skulls cheaper, I'd be like, what the fuck are we doing? But hey, if you have a different opinion, I am very willing to hear it. But going on with the stat check, all right. So we got this marked down: Angron, Corn Lord of Skulls. Then I was like, well, when I put together a list, and I probably should have pulled it up, but just to see what points look like, I ended up putting in a Hell Brute for 130 because it also is kind of scary. Getting frenzied by the World Eater's Hell Brute is kind of annoying. Each time an enemy unit targets this model after that unit has finished making its attacks, this model can either shoot as if it were your shooting phase or fight as if it were your fight phase. Yeah. Um and also it doesn't even have to say like take a wound or nothing. Like it doesn't none of that. Just if you target it and if you fucking whiff, you just ask to get hit back for pretty much no discernible reason. 928 isn't the toughest thing ever, but it does have Blessings of Corn, so you can benefit from it that way. And yeah, just the stat check idea, just bulky things. There's also the option of the Mauler Fiend, I guess, that I was like, well, if we're just talking about like bulk and charging and shit, probably should look at the Mauler Fiend. Each time you make a charge roll for this model, if one or more of the targets of that charge are below their starting strength, add 2 to the roll. 2 to the roll. Goodness. Each time this model makes a melee attack that targets an enemy unit that is below its starting strength, add 1 to the hit roll. Again, you have, like, you're playing the World Eater, so it's not like it's insane to think of something, other options being better here for 140 points. But just again, thinking of a stat check perspective of just literally, I'm putting big shit in can you handle it or not. T10, 3 up, 5 up, 12 wounds, and still does the corn thing. Pretty snasty. I didn't really think that you might want to bring the Defiler, the Helldrake, or like any of this shit. I guess I should address the Forge Fiend at 145 and your shooting phase after this model has finished making its attacks. If one or more battle shock test on infantry, right? One or more hits versus an infantry unit, that infantry unit battle shock test. Don't think that World Eaters give a shit about battle shock tests last I checked, but there's your shooting if you're just like, well, you got a point. We could just stat check, but I'm gonna take what 2, 3 Forge Fiends instead of the Corn Lord of Skulls. Understandable. Have a nice day. Then when I was like, well, yeah, all right, let me fill it out. Master of Executioner, Executions, and Berserkers, and I was like, wait a fucking minute. You could put Demon Princes. World Eater's Demon Prince. While a friendly World Eater's infantry unit is within 6 inches of these models, models in that unit have a 5 up Enroller save. If they already have an invuln, make it 4 up. And then Devastating Assault. Each time this model makes a charge move until the end of the turn, its Hellforged weapons have the Devastating Wounds ability. Yeah, that's just again T10, 2 up save, 4 up invuln, 10 wounds. 200 points, pretty steepish, but we're not worried about that. We're just trying to do 7 greater demons backslash 4 big knights, yada yada yada. In this idea. And then I also remembered looking at the Demon Prince with wings. I've heard that World Eater players are like, man, probably needs some fly into the list. So besides Angron, here's something else that can fly, and we'll get to another one too. Also has Deep Strike. Bloody Terror at the start of the fight phase. If you're within engagement range of this model, must take a battle shock test. Oath to Corn at the start of the battle. Select one unit from your opponent's army to be this model's sworn foe. Each time this model makes an attack that targets that sworn foe, you can reroll the hit roll and the wound roll. If at the end of the battle that sworn foe has not been destroyed, this model is destroyed. 170 points. Don't really know how much you care about this. Like, I guess if you were playing for the late game and you had, like, Unbroken Wall or some shit, um, then I guess it could be an issue. Or if you made this your Warlord and you didn't take Angron, which, again, sounds insane, something like that. But, yeah, this is your Fly and your Deep Strike. Again, take this from, I Sensei take this, but again, going back to an army I do like, Crusher Stampede, Tyranids, you'll be surprised how many actions you can do with, like, deep striking monsters. Especially if they can fly, right? Like, so that's cool. Then you go on to, obviously, the main Corn Demon, that can fly, Rip Scarbrand, and has Deep Strike, Bloodthirster. T11, 4 up, 4 up, 18 wounds. You don't need to worry about this one. Uh, yeah, you're already hitting on twos, but if something has -1 to hit, you can apply this to yourself. And then finally, Relentless Carnage at the end of the fight phase. Excuse me. You can select one enemy unit within engagement range of this model and roll 8d6 for each 4 up that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. A nice coup de grace, I guess. But also, Deep Strike Fly Corn unit can ally in T11. And the only reason I have this data sheet up is because, well, you need to take, with the whole Demon's Ally change, you have to take Battle Line and an equivalent. And then, even then, Bloodletters, not bad, right? The price, I get, again, I've criticized that Chaos Demons are very expensive for odd reasons, but +1 to charge roll, leadership of 6 with the war gear options, deep striking battle line, that blood begets blood. Each time a model in this unit makes a melee attack, reroll a wound roll of 1. If that attack targets a unit that is below half strength, you can reroll the wound roll instead. That's not a bad package for me to mandatorily take if I want to bring the Bloodthirster for the stat check, right? So, and again, they are 10 models that deep strike and our battle line. It probably will help in this madman idea. And then finally, take a big knight if we're talking about stat checking and doing it knight style. And of course, I was like, well, shit, the one that probably is the most corn-ish is the Knight Rampager. Each time this model makes a charge move until the end of the turn, its melee weapons have the sustained hits 1 ability. In addition, once per battle, this model is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. T12, 3 up save, 5 up invuln versus ranged, 22 wounds, advancing and charging at you. Pretty scary. Uh, Now, mind you, outside of the Chaos Knights army rule, I guess, you don't necessarily just walk over things. So, yeah, getting this into position for that will be annoying, but you have a 12-inch move. It can advance and charge. I think you can find a way to make it fucking work. So, yeah. And I guess while we're here, we should address, maybe you want to bring, like, War Dog carnivores instead. 3 War Dog carnivores instead of a Rampager. You can reroll charge rolls made for this model. T10, 3 up, 5, 12 wounds. Throw them into the mix. They're also battle lines, so maybe you're like, that stat check kind of worked, but I need more battle line instead of just my blood letters. War Dog carnivores. This is just, hey, could World Eaters be the scariest stat check? That's probably along the lines of what I'll title this. Depends on how many characters that is. But genuinely, I don't know how many armies could deal with melee knights, right? Like, a lot of the stat checks, like with greater demons, they don't necessarily want to be in melee. And they don't have the speed to back it up, per se. It's usually, alright, here's a bunch of them that will get to positions. And if you have, like, tank busting, you kind of win because I have to be there and then shoot from afar and then have this like shootout with you. Not many of those have deep strike worth a damn. Chaos demons, they do have the deep strike, but then their profiles for damage are not very good. Outside of course, we're talking like Bloodthirster. Um, Great Unclean One, you're like infantry level of clearing. Lord of Chains, you can kind of punch in the face and just get it over with. Uh, Keeper of Secrets, debatably not worth the cost from what I understand. Bloodthirster, well, we're bringing it here. You know, things like that. You still have to get them there. And then that's why people have, for pretty much most of this edition, brought corn mixed with Nurgle, where it's like, well, Nurgle can sit there and absorb damage, and then corn can get in there and do damage. So, yeah, from that angle, I think World Eaters have the greatest range, or the greatest potential, I guess, of doing something really fucking scary in a team's format of a stat check. But that's just maybe a biased opinion, maybe. But yeah, if you're not doing hot in singles, maybe don't be scared to make this the teams format. And again, people playing teams probably know what not to be scared because you are aiming for favorable matchups. But I don't know, just an interesting idea I saw. Well, I I don't know, just looking at shit. So yeah, if you like the video, like it. Got a comment for me, comment. And until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.